Here we go. All right, let's sit down for the tier list. This is how I'm going to do it. A lot of you guys have been asking me about kind of a tier list for solo shuffle. So I'm going to do one really, I wouldn't say quick, but this is what we have, okay? We have all the specs in the game. This is what we're doing. We have all the specs in the game, and I'm going to rate them between S and D tier, and we're going to do it kind of mathematically, I've decided. I'm going to do it kind of mathematically. And the way we're going to do it mathematically is by using my trusty notepad that you guys love so much. So we'll bust out the notepad. And this is how we're going to determine the different specs, okay? So we have overall DPS/HPS. We have their ability to burst, the utility that they bring, their CC and setup potential, and their overall defense. And we're going to rate it between 1 and 5, starting with Warlock, okay? Overall DPS, I'd say it has to be a 5, right? 5 out of 5. Burst for Affliction Warlock, probably a 2 out of 5. Right? What would we say? Yeah, I'd say 2 out of 5 is fair. Overall utility in the match, it's not that high, to be honest with you. Like, what's their overall utility? They have Gateway, they have a Spell Lock, they have Fear, that's kind of CC. But I'd say their overall utility with like Gateway and stuff like that is probably like a 2. Hellstones, I guess a 3, we'll say, because they have a Hellstone. CC and setup potential. Overall, they have good CC, but their setup potential, I'd say, is kind of low, I think. This is for Affliction. I'd give them a 3. And their defense, I actually think Affliction Warlocks have a pretty good defense, so like a 3. With that in mind, I am going to give an Affliction Warlock B. They will be B. So Affliction Warlock B. Arcane Mage. All right, well, we'll do a little bit of a reset here. Remember, all these numbers are between 1 and 5. So Arcane Mage, overall DPS is a 1. Arcane Mage Burst, I'd say, is actually kind of high. I'd give it a 4. Utility with mass invisibility, probably a 2. Their CC and setup potential, they have pretty good CC. Setup potential, I'd say, is pretty low. 2. Defense, solid 2. Arcane Mage is getting D tier. I think the thing that kind of seals the deal for me with Arcane Mage is they just don't have instant CC, and their overall damage is incredibly low. And their burst, you can kind of prevent and stop by training them. So Arcane Mage, it's a rip in peace. They are definitely D tier. Okay? Yeah, this is for 9.2, guys. I should make that clear. This is for 9.2 and solo shuffle. Okay? Next up, we have Arms Warrior. Overall DPS for an Arms Warrior? 5. Overall burst for an Arms Warrior? 5. Overall utility for an Arms Warrior? 5. Overall setup / CC potential with Sharpened Blade, Intimidating Shout, and Stormbolt? I'd say a 4, probably. And their defense is a 5. Biased? Wait, you think this is biased? Please explain to me how this is biased. Arms Warriors, since the beginning of Shadowlands, have been the most represented DPS spec in the entire game. This is not biased. This is 100% right. 1 stun and 1 fear and Sharpened Blade. Sharpened Blade is a very powerful tool to win games. And Kyrian Spear. If you're playing Kyrian, you have Kyrian Spear as well. A defense, a 3 out of 4. What? Warriors defense is not a 3 or 4. You guys are on one right now. They're getting S tier 100%. All right, next up we have Assassination Rogue. All right, so Assassination Rogue in 9.2, their set bonus is actually really powerful. I think assassination stonks are going up. So overall damage, I'd say, is quite high at probably like a 4, maybe a 5 actually. Their burst, surprisingly, is incredibly high as well. So I'd say their burst, I wonder if you could put it at a 5. Would you put, I think there's an argument to be made that it's like a 5. It's good. I guess what yeah, I'd say it's up there. Utility with blind, kidney shot, their shiv. I guess that's kind of CC and setup potential. Utility, it would be more like they have blind, they have sap, they have smoke bomb. You know what? I'm gonna merge these. Utility, CC, and setup potential. We're gonna merge these, okay? because I think they're one and the same. So, you know, as a rogue, obviously you have stealth, you have sap, you have smoke bomb, you have kidney shot, you have your shiv, which is really, really powerful. I think, you know, rogues obviously have a really, really high setup potential. It has to be high, like at least a 4. I'd put their burst at 4 as well. I'm going to take that back. Their defense, I would actually say the rogue's defense is weak in solo shuffle, I've found. So for like a solo queue, it's not bad, right? Like you have evasion, you have cloak of shadows, you have vanish. Like you do have buttons to live, but I think when you compare it to like an arms warrior, even like a wind, I feel a lot more. Maybe it's because I suck at rogue, but when I play like Windwalker or I play Demon Hunter, I feel a lot more like kind of durable than a rogue. I feel like rogues actually kind of get cranked. So I would put their overall defense at like a 3 here. Maybe a 2. We could do a 2. So Assassination, I think is gonna go. I'm gonna put it A tier. I would say Assassination could be A or B. I'm kind of on the fence about this one. A or B? I want to say A though. I'd say low A tier, high B tier kind of thing, you know? Next up, we have Moonkin. Now Moonkin, I feel like their overall damage is quite mediocre. Like it's a 3, I'd say. Overall damage for Moonkin, probably a 3. What would you say? A 2/3 kind of thing. 2.5. Their burst, I'd say Boomkin's definitely a very respectable burst. They have at least a 4 on the burst. 4/5. So I'm going to put a 4.5 for their burst. We're going to start doing 0.5s because I've decided I want to. Their utility, their CC, and their setup potential, I'd argue it's quite strong. If you get attacked as a Moonkin, you basically have like those really, really fast instant cast clones. If you get a lot of those procs, I'd say that's very good. You have Root Beam, so your actual ability to kind of like end the game on your own as a Moonkin is, I'd say, pretty powerful. Just with Cyclone, your instant Cyclone, as well as Root Beam. I'd say I'd put their utility, CC, and setup potential at like a 4. Like a 4. And then defense, I want to put like a 5 on their defense, like a 4.5 kind of thing. Moonkins, I feel like, are immortal. Bash and Roar XD, I think Boomkin CC is a 5. Yeah, Boomkin CC could be a 5. So, with all things considered, their overall damage is quite low, but they have really high burst, really good utility, and really good defense. I'd put a Moonkin at a solid A tier. They're a solid A tier. Put it ahead of Rogue. Oh, okay, I could do that. All right. Ahead of Assassination Rogue. I don't really put too much stock of like this ahead of thing. I'm not sure about that. I don't know if that's like a normal thing in a tier list. You know what? Another thing we should put is how well you work with others. So that's another thing to consider. And I think if we go back and like kind of rate that for the specs we've already done so far, I think it's pretty accurate. How well you work with others. We're gonna put that. Okay, so BM Hunters. Overall damage for a BM Hunter, I'd say a 5. What their burst? They're not like the most bursty, right? Like a 3.5 kind of thing. Their burst, maybe like a 3. They have a really high overall DPS, but their burst isn't like that crazy. Your utility CC setup potential. So you have really good CC as a BM Hunter, I feel like. Just the fact that you have, like, I personally rate classes that have instant CC really high in this mode. If you have instant CC for the healer, I feel like you can impact the game in like a good way, you know? So I would say their CC is at least like a 4. It's not spammable, but I say their CC is very effective, like stun trapping a healer. I'd say it's quite strong. Defense, not the most impressive defense on a hunter, on a BM Hunter. It's not bad. I mean, it depends on what you're fighting against, I'd say. I guess they have good kiting. Feign Death is quite strong. I'd put their defense at like a 3.5. A 2? A 2, really? I'll reconsider at a 3, but I'm not sure I'm quite willing to go to a 2 just yet. Against casters, they have like a... I think it probably depends. If you're a BM Hunter and you're being trained by like a TSG, your defense feels weak. But if you're a BM Hunter and you're fighting casters, I feel like you're maxed out, right? All right, 3. How well you work with others. BM Hunters, I feel like have pretty good synergy, just all around. Like, they have a Mortal Strike effect, they have good damage, they have good CC. I'd give that like a 4. So, all things considered, I think BM Hunter's ability to kind of solo impact the game is an A. I think they're an A. Maybe B? A? Yeah, A. Yeah, I think A. I mean, we can just math this out really quick. 5 plus 4, 9, 13, 19. 19 out of a possible 25. So they're like a high B. Ah, they're A. I guess they're A, yeah. High B, A, A. Okay, we'll go with an A. All right, now let's do next. I think we're going to save all the healers for last, by the way. So we're going to skip the healers until last. Demonology Warlock. Demonology Warlock, overall DPS is like a 2, probably, right? Their burst is a 5. I think they have probably the best burst and one of the best bursts in the game. Utility CC setup potential, I think is really high as well. Like, you have spammable fear, you have coil, you have a stun. Like, I think their utility CC and setup potential is really high. Like, I put it at 4.5, honestly. But how do we feel about their defense? I feel like just getting trained down is like kind of rough. I feel like their defense is, I guess it's okay. Like, you're pretty durable. If the pet dies, they're dead. Yeah, so there's like that contingency. They have a clear weakness, right? Like, if their pet's alive, they're chilling, but their pet dies. They have gate as well. Yeah. And how well do they work with others? Well, I think it's a weird kind of spec, because if you play the Demonology Warlock, you kind of just have to accept the fact that you're only going to win in setups. At least that's been my experience. Like, either you win in setups or your Demo Warlock is ignored and you just completely kill someone immediately, you know? It's really, really setup based. I'd say their ability to work with others is not that high. Maybe like a 3.5. I kind of want to put Demo at B tier. There's a lot of people putting a lot of stock in Demo, and I feel like it could be better than Affliction. I'm not entirely sure. My gut is telling me it's like high B, low A. It's between A and B for sure. We're going to leave it at B for now. Based off what you guys say, I might change my mind. But I think it's a solid B. I also want you guys to keep in mind that B is not bad. Maybe Affliction should actually go down to C. Yeah, I think Affliction goes down to C. I'm changing my mind. Affliction is going down to C, and Demo Warlock is going to be B. Okay? B tier is legit. I want you guys to know that, like, B tier is super solid. Okay? B tier is solid. When I'm gonna be honest, when I took my report card home and gave it to my parents and it was all B's, I was stoked. You know what I mean? And they were stoked too. They weren't upset about that. Yeah. B is good. B is definitely good. C is like, you're okay. You know, you're getting there. D is you're a failure. And so far the only thing is a failure is Arcane Mage. Now, let's move on. The next spec we have is Destruction Warlock. So overall damage of Destruction Warlock, I would actually say is pretty high. I feel like the stock, it's like a 3.5. You know what I mean? If they're left alone, they do considerable damage. But if they get attacked, their damage falls off a little bit. Their burst, I would say, is pretty high as well. I would give their burst like a 4, honestly, with their cooldowns and infernals and instant chaos bolts. Like, they definitely pump. They pump. I feel like B is where classes need to be. C is viable. D is definitely needs improvement. And A is slightly overpowered. S is extremely overpowered. Okay. Yeah. S doesn't mean overtuned. That guy plays warrior for sure. All right. CC, utility, and setup potential. I would put it equal to, like, it's good. It's got coil. It's got infernal stuns. It's really good, man. Spammable fear, obviously. Like, I feel like it's a 4 for CC, maybe even a 5. I mean, what classes have better CC? That's the only thing. You don't have like a palm. You don't have instant CC. Well, you do have instant CC, but not that much. But it's nice that you have spammable. We'll put it at 4. 4.5. Fire Mage is like a 5, just to give you guys like a reference point. Like, a Fire Mage is a 5. Defense for a Destruction Warlock, I'd probably say is like a 3, kind of similar. How well you work with others. So not a very finessey class. Similar to Demo, Like Affliction, Demo, and Destruction are not super finessey. You know, they're kind of like Frost Mage. When you're in the arena, things are, you know, your hands are getting dirty. Like it's a little messy. You know what I'm saying? It's a little messy. But I'd still say they work pretty well overall. Like I think they work well with some melee. They work well with some casters. So I think Destro is a solid B. I personally think Affliction is going to be the worst of the Warlock specs. I could be wrong about that, but I think Destro, from what I've seen, is very strong. I think Demonology is going to be the strongest caster in Solo Shuffle by a mile, better than Boomkin. We'll see about that. I'm not convinced of that, but I am curious to see how this plays out. I want to go back to this tier list and eventually see how it all plays out. All right, but moving along. Ellie Shaman. Overall DPS, fairly good. Burst, extremely high. Extremely high. Ellie Shaman's, with Vesper Totem in particular, I feel like you can just sneak in wins. Like your burst, I guess you can, there's a way to counter the burst, but like Ellie Shamans do some unbelievable damage right now. Vesper is a meme. I mean, you say that, but I don't know, man. I think Vesper is really, really strong. How do you counter it? I guess you kill it, but I mean, all it takes is one. Like it's not always easy. You know, it's like it reminds me when people say like, "Oh, Vesper is a meme." It reminds me of when people in Battle for Azeroth said, "Oh yeah, just line G-Pie. Oh, you fight Mage Lock, just line G-Pie, line G-Pie and line Chaos Bolt. You're fine." Burst not a 5. It could be a 5. It could be a 5. Utility CC setup potential for an Ellie Shaman. They have great CC, lots of interrupts. Lightning Lasso, I think, is really, really strong. You have Hex. You have Thunderstorm. I actually think Ellie Shamans are great, man. So I'd put them at like a 4.5 for that. You guys are saying that Ellie Shamans are a 5 burst. Okay, I'll respect that. Defense, Ellie Shamans, I feel like defensively are not the best, probably. I think that's... I think it depends on what you fight against. Against casters, you do pretty well, but against stuff like RMP, you just die in 1 millisecond. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's one of those things where you're really strong into some casters, but you're really weak into, you know, certain melee that can just kind of train you down, which is rough. So I'll say like a 2.5 for defense. How well you work with others. I think Shaman overall have been pretty consistent for a long time. Like if I'm on my Monk, I'm never sad to have a Shaman on my team. If I'm on the Mage, I'm not that sad to have a Shaman on my team. So, but I'm also not like that happy. What would you say with work well with others? Like a 3.5/4? 3.75? I would say. Personally, I feel like Ellie Shamans are going to be really, really strong in Solo Shuffle. Like a good Ellie Shaman, I think, will have like a good impact on the game. I would put them at A. Can we agree Ellie Shaman's at an A? I think that's fine, right? They're super strong. I think so. We'll go with the A. Next up, Enhancement Shaman. Ooh, Enhancement Shaman. Now, personally, I feel like Enhancement Shaman, overall damage of Enhancement Shaman is, it's okay. Their burst is freaking wild. I'd say their burst is a 5. When Enhancement Shaman's on me with all his cooldowns, I feel incredibly scared. I feel like that is what Enhancement Shamans are. So defense for Enhancement Shaman is really, really interesting. I guess we should do utility. Utility CC setup, same kind of thing as Ellie Shaman. You have a lot of disruption with Grounding Totem, with Wind Shear. You don't have the knockback. You also don't have Lightning Lasso. So what do we give? It has to be lower. And yeah, I guess utility is the off healing, the instant healing, which is really, really nice. I would say like a 3.5. Their healing is better than Ellie. So I'd say like a 4 for utility, honestly. It's good. I would say 4. I think I'm going to go with the 4. They have a lot. But the one thing that they suck at is defense. Their defense is trash, I think. Like, although they have a lot of healing, I feel like they get really overwhelmed by certain things. Like if they get caught in stuns and can't heal themselves, they kind of just flop over immediately. I would say a 2 for defense, honestly. Defense is kind of weak. It's a weak sauce. How well you work with others. And when I think about like what are the comps that Enhancement Shaman has right now, it has 1 comp, right? Like I guess you could play like basically Enhancement Shaman works with melee only. and it only has turbo because its defense is so low. Honestly, its defense might be a 1, like a 1.5. Like its defense is really, really bad. How well you work with others is like a 1. I'd say they don't have that many great comps. So I think in the comps Enhancement Shamans are good in, they do well. But I don't think they work very well with a lot of classes. How well will you work with others? I mean, how many comps do you have? It's pretty low, man. You have Enhanced Warrior, and someone said you could play Enhanced Rogue. I feel like the overall DPS is too high. Outside of Doomwinds, they don't really do damage. Okay, yeah, I think that's a fair criticism. We'll put it at a 2. Kind of feel like Enhancement Shaman is like C tier. I'm going to put Enhancement Shaman at C tier. I think that's fine. All right, next up, Ferals. Okay, here we go. Overall damage of a Feral. Really strong. Ferals do insane damage, like at least a 4.5. Their burst, depending on their covenant, is also, I feel like, really, really high. At least a 4. Utility, CC, setup potential, 5. I feel very confident saying that Feral Druids have a 5 on utility. Does anyone disagree with me? I'd say with your ability to like off heal, having cyclones, having the stuns that you do, I think 5. It could be 6, yeah. Their defense also is a 5. I really believe that. I think Feral Druids are crazy, man. I feel like they're really good. 5 if Necro. Burst with Kieran or Fae is 5. Yeah. It's good, man. It's good. We'll like a 4.5. Defense, maybe like... What are the weaknesses of Feral defensively? I don't know. I actually don't know. What is it? I don't think there is one. I feel like I've never killed Mind Games. 1 ability. A lot of the times they just heal through it too. I'm leaving it at this. 4.5. Ferals are crazy, man. How well do you work well with others? Well, let's think about that. I think Feral Druids work with casters. Like they work with like a Shadow Priest. They work with a Mage. They work with a Warlock. I think they work with melee. I'd say a 4 on how well you work with others. I can't really think of too many classes that work better. 4.5 even, maybe. They work with hunters. Like, I'd say a 4.5. I'm going to put Feral Druid at S tier. I really am. I think I'm doing it, man. I think they're good. It's either they're the number 1A or S tier. I would put S. I really think they're strong. All right, Fire Mage. Oh, here we go. Keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing we're going to be doing healers last. Okay? All right, so Fire Mage. Overall DPS is a Fire Mage. In the comps, Fire Mages play. Like, I feel like as a Fire Mage, you can kind of pad the meters a little bit. With I guess it's not necessarily padding, but with your Ring of Fire, you can put a really solid amount of damage out. I think overall damage, I want to say overall damage is a 3.5 for Fire Mages. Burst, 5. Does anyone disagree? Burst is 6. No, burst is a 10. It's a overall is lower. We can put overall lower. Yeah, we could put overall lower. A 3. The burst is a 2. All right, let's be serious. Yeah, you guys are such trolls, man. All right, so utility, CC, and setup potential. Someone has brought to my attention that Fire Mages don't have a stun, but Fire Mage crowd control with Dragon's Breath. So Fire Mage with Dreamweaver, having a snare when your poly gets dispelled. So when your poly gets dispelled and then you get a snare, and your Nova gets dispelled and you have a snare, and you have Dragon's Breath on a 16-second cooldown, and it can be reset with shifting power. And if you Dragon's Breath go for a sheep and you get kicked on the sheep, you can Ring of Frost. Like, sure, you don't have a stun, but I feel like I'd be doing a disservice to everyone in the game by not giving them a 5. They have a 5. There's no doubt in my mind. Fire Mage is a 5 on CC. 100%. Dragon's Breath is the craziest ability in the entire game. Defense? I mean, Fire Mage defense. 2.5? Are you guys crazy? What are you talking about? Defense includes Dragon's Breath, by the way. I'm not putting it under a 4. There's absolutely no way I'm putting it under a 4. The defense includes CC? Yeah, of course it has to. Fire Mage defense is a 4 after Triune nerf. Yeah, I can agree with that. I'll never put it under a 4. Any of you guys saying like 3 and 2? No. I'm sorry. You have Cauterize, you have Ice Block. You have lots. Fire Mages are great, man. Since the Triune nerf, your defense has gone down a lot, but I think your ability to keep yourself alive, especially, you have to keep in mind too. I'm considering like Covenants here. Every Fire Mage in the game, they all play Night Fae, man. They all play Night Fae. And honestly, I feel like a Night Fae is just so, it synergizes so well with the Fire Mage kit. It's really, really strong. So I'll put 4 at a minimum. And how well you work with others, I think Fire Mages are like a 4.5. Like Fire Mage works with everything, right? Like it works with Warlocks, it works with Shadow Priests, it works with Ellie Shaman, it works with Rogue, it works with pretty much every melee in the game. I'd say they work with like a 4.5 would be how I feel. It works with other mages, yeah. Doesn't work with the DK. It doesn't work with the DK. But I feel like there is a way. Like in my head, there's a way where you could play like Necro Fire Mage with a DK and play like Ring of Fire and just parse for overall damage, and maybe it would be okay. You lose with a DK. It's definitely, yeah. I think Fire Mages are like a 4 or 5. I personally, I think Fire Mage is S tier. I think Fire Mage will be S tier. I think their ability to get crowd control by themselves, really capitalize on burst moments. I really mean it. Like Fire Mages, when I even think about playing one, like your ability to just like go and CC the healer with Dragon's Breath Sheep, and if you need to, you can just run away and extend the fight with like a Dragon's Breath Ring and bait melee in the open, and you know, they have really, really good kite ability. So I would say S tier for Fire Mage. Although their overall damage is low, I think everything else is really, really good. Next up, Frost Death Knight. So Death Knights are interesting. Damn, we got a lot to get through here. There's a lot of classes in this game, man. Holy crap, a lot of specs. All right, Frost Death Knight. Frost Death Knight overall DPS 3, burst a 5. I would say Frost Death Knights have some of the craziest burst in the entire game. Yeah, Alter Time. I didn't even talk about Alter Time. Yeah, Alter Time's crazy. So overall damage for Frost Death Knight, I'd say is honestly, it could be like a 2.5. Their burst is a 5 though. They have some of the craziest burst ever. Utility and setup potential. I would say DKs have really, really high setup potential with like a Grip Blinding Sleet. That being said, how well will it work in like a solo queue environment? You think their DPS is a 3? Okay. I'm fine with that. Utility CC and setup potential. So they don't have like a spammable CC. Do they have Strangulate? Do they have Strangulate? Like, Necro, here's the thing about Necro Death Knights, and it's going to be similar for Unholy. They do get Strang if they spec into it. Like, that's really good, man. I swear. Your Grippy Hands is such a crazy setup. And it works well with so many classes, too. Like, your ability to just, like, kind of grip people in, Blinding Sleet, do your Grippy Hands, do your Go. Like, against a team that's not well coordinated, I feel like your utility CC setup potential is really high. I want to say, like, 4. You don't have, like, a spammable CC like a Mage or, like, a Moonkin. But I think just you make up for that with, like, how strong your setup is. And Chains of Ice as well. Chains... Do you want to upgrade to like a 4.5 on this? That might be too high. You don't have Mortal Strike. I'd say 4. Okay, 4 is the consensus. Now, defense. With all things considered, like your ability to counter go as a Frost Death Knight, you know, having Chains of Ice. I actually kind of think that DK's survivability against casters is a bit overpowered. I don't think I'm being biased. I think it's incredibly good. Like, if I could rate their defense separately, like, defense against casters is a 5, and their defense against melee is, like, a 2, probably, right? I think against casters, they're OP, and against melee, they're not great. So how do you balance that? Like, where do you go? If we say 5 for casters and 2 for melee, we put 3.5, I think. Let's do some math. You split the difference, yeah. And how well do you work with others? I don't know how well you work with others. I think Frost Death Knights kind of excel with other melee. Like, they're really good with like they're really good with like a warrior. They're gonna be good with a Windwalker Monk. They'll be good with a Havoc Demon Hunter. They'll be good with a Rep Paladin. Like, I think with any melee, Frost Death Knight will excel. Potentially with like a Shadow Priest. But overall, I think they don't work that great with other classes. So I think that Frost Death Knights bring a lot to the table. I think they'll be really viable, but I'm gonna have to put them at a B. I'm gonna give them a solid B. And remember, if you bring your report card home to your mom, a B they're gonna be happy about, I would say. You think B is fair? I don't think it should be C. Should it be C? I think B. Not my mom. B. I think B is completely fair. All right, now my favorite spec, Frost Mage. This is my favorite spec. Overall DPS of a Frost Mage during cooldowns, very high. So I guess we could put that as a burst. Like, if you can cast as a Frost Mage, I'll say this. If you can cast as a Necrolord Frost Mage, your overall damage is, I'd say, the highest in the entire game. So if you get to free cast, your overall damage is literally a 5, a 6, a 10. It's crazy. And it lasts a long time, so you get bonus points for that. But it's not instant. You have to cast. And I feel like there has to be a drawback on that, right? So the problem with Frost Mage is you have to cast, but it lasts a long time. I would say 4.5 for their burst. What about overall? I feel like their overall damage is kind of poop. Like, it depends on what spec you're playing. Like, if you're playing a Necrolord Frost Mage, your overall DPS is like a 2, but your burst is like a 5, you know? Maybe overall is like a 3. Burst 4.5. I think that's fair. I think this is fair. Overall DPS of a 3, your burst is 4.5. But there's like a contingency there. If you can't cast, you don't do any burst. You know what I mean? But I think that's fine. I think this is, I will say that. So utility Frostwall is a 5. Put an asterisk. Yeah, like, you know, there's a you know, there's a smudge there. Okay, utility setup and CC potential for Frost Mage. So Frost Mage has Ice Wall, which I feel like Ice Wall is super good in these kind of like solo games. I'm gonna be completely honest. I feel like Ice Wall, you can make some crazy plays in these solo games. And I have made some crazy plays, and I love it. You have Spam Polymorph, and you have Ice Wall. That's what a Frost Mage has. And snares. You have snares, wall. What you don't have is a silence. You don't have a stun, and you don't have any way to set yourself up for CC like a Fire Mage. You do have a ring, too, but sometimes you don't play it. I want to say that Frost Mage is like a 3.5. Because it's kind of about like how impactful... I'd say a 3.5. I feel confident in a 3.5. If you guys are still at this point in the video, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, say hi. You made it all the way to Frost Mage, ladies and gentlemen. All right, defense for a Frost Mage. You have 2 ice blocks. You have some kiting, but I think overall defense is low on a mage. I'm going to be honest. On Frost Mage, I feel like your defense is kind of not good. Now, I'm happy to have a debate. You guys can debate me on this one. You don't have Cauterize. You don't have something like Dragon's Breath to really like bolster your own defense. And you're kind of just a punching bag. And how well do you work with others? Not great. I'd say 2. I don't think Frost Mage has worked that well with others. Maybe okay. I'd say 2. I feel very comfortable putting Frost at C. Potentially B. But I want to say C. Wait, what do you guys think? Would you say C? Does anyone disagree with me? Utility needs to be a 4. Okay, I can put that. IMO C. Yeah, I think C is fine for Frost. I'm a proud Frost Mage, and I'm a C student when it comes to WoW. Fury Warrior. Here we go. So Fury Warriors, ladies and gentlemen, in 9.2, few interesting things about them. They do insane DPS. Their overall DPS is crazy. I want to put like their overall damage. It could be like the highest I've seen. It's really good, like a 4.5 for their overall damage. But we'll get to their problems, okay? We'll get to their problems. Their burst, very high. Utility, CC, and setup potential, it's okay. You know, it's not bad. Like, what do we say for Arms Warrior? They don't have, do they have Sharpened Blade? They don't have Sharpened Blade, right? And their defense, they don't have Sharpened Blade, so it has to be less. Yeah. You should definitely stay, Bob, forever. They have 40% MS. It's not nearly as good. They do have a 40% mortal, but it has a contingency on it, right? It's a lot harder to get up. It needs to stack up. It's like way more annoying to get up. It's not too hard. Defense at 2 max. Defense is like a... They have some of the lowest defense I've seen, I think. I think Fury Warriors just fall over dead. How well do they work with others? I think in general, like... like warriors, like certain melee, I'll show you guys. So like melee, like Fury, like Outlaw Rogue is another example. Even Survival Hunter, Windwalker Monk. I think overall they do work pretty well with others. You know, you kind of just stick on a target. You have a stun, you have lockdown, you have overall damage. It's not too bad. But I think when you compare it to their big brothers, they're just not that great, man. Like if you focus a Fury Warrior, they just kind of die. Now, I don't know if I'm comfortable putting it at the same level of Garbanzo as Arcane. I don't know if I'm comfortable putting it at the same level as Arcane. But I'm thinking D. Maybe C. Maybe C. I've actually, you know what? I'm going to put it at C because I've actually seen some Fury Warriors that actually impress me, and they take off rounds just based off how much damage they do. I'm going to put them at C. I think you guys will be surprised. I think I know in 915. Listen, I know very well that in 915, Fury Warriors are complete shit. Like if it was 915, they'd be D. But I think their set bonuses are actually quite good. So just in terms of like their damage and how well they work with other classes, I'm going to put them at a C. Next, Havoc Demon Hunter. Havoc Demon Hunter overall damage 5. It has to be, right? Burst on a Havoc Demon Hunter, they're very good, like a 4. Overall damage is a 5. Their burst is a 4, I'd say, depending on their build. Their utility, CC, and setup potential. So the utility, what's their utility? They have like a big imprisonment. They have reverse magic, which is really strong. They have 2 stuns, which is really good. So I'd say they have great CC. They have great setup potential, and their utility with reverse magic and darkness, I think, is really good too. I honestly, I think it's a 4.5. I think it's a 4.5 for their utility, CC, and setup potential. When I play my Demon Hunter, you have Mortal Strike as well. So you have Mortal Strike, you have reverse magic, you have darkness, you have great mobility, you have, you know, great burst, great overall damage. Reverse magic is super strong, stealth detection. I don't think darkness is, yeah. Here's the thing about darkness. So a lot of you guys are talking about darkness not being good. If you drop darkness early, it's incredibly good. So like, I'll give you an example. If you're playing DH Boomkin Shaman and you're fighting against like a Ret Warrior and they run at your healer and you just go over there and press darkness, that is an incredibly effective darkness. Like there's a really low chance that you're going to die when you dark someone at 100% health. Now darkness sucks if you run over to someone and they're 20% health, then it's bad. But if you drop it really early, it's very good. I kind of feel like darkness is one of those things that you can use wrong and it sucks. But if you use it right, it's very good. It's very, very good. I'm putting it at a 4.5. I think their defense... I don't know how I feel about their defense. Against Magic, I'd say their defense is pretty solid. Like a 4.5 for Magic. And then how do we feel about melee? I don't know. Like maybe just... I think I'm going to put their defense at a 4. Glimpse. I feel like Glimpse is good. I feel like Blur is really strong. They have darkness for themselves. Like getting their healer out of CC with reverse magic is really strong. You have a little bit of leech healing. You don't have the most leech healing. You have like really good kiting. You have Nether Walk if you need it. You have Necro Heals. Yeah, Necro Heals is another thing. Someone asked me a question. They said, are you only considering baseline kits or doing covenants too? Well, I'm kind of considering the covenant that they mostly use. I feel like their defense is a 4. I never feel squishy on my Demon Hunter. I never feel like I'm squishy, to be honest with you. The only time I die on my Demon Hunter, literally ever, is against a super well-coordinated like RMP or something like that. Other than that, I feel literally invulnerable. I swear. So the only things that ever kill me on my Demon Hunter, ever, in a million years, are a Windwalker Monk with Bone Dust Brew or an RMP. Other than that, I literally never die. I would say 4. And how well do you work with others? I'd say 4. Like Demon Hunter, I think Demon Hunter is going to work pretty well with pretty much any caster based off its kit, and basically any melee based off its kit. Like to me, yeah, this is like this looks like an S tier score, huh? Do we think they're S? I feel like they. When I play my Demon Hunter, I feel like it's better than Assassination. I really do. It's either the highest A tier possible or S tier. You don't think they're S? We could put it at A. A lot of players that Demon Hunters can single-handedly win. I say S. They're S. All right. A lot of good people in my chat are saying S, and I kind of agree with that. I mean, look at their score. It's hard not to. I mean, yeah, they have a really, really good score. So they're up there, man. All right, we're getting down to the wire. Now, Marks Hunter. Marks Hunter. Overall damage of a Marks Hunter, I'd say is like a 3.5. Burst is a 5. Any disagreements? Burst could be a 10. 3.5 and 5 versus 7. Yeah. Unfortunately, we can't put 7 out of 5. That doesn't really... The numbers don't add up. Okay. So, CC setup potential for a Marks Hunter. I think they're good. So, similarly to BM Hunter and similarly to Survival Hunter, I think they have great CC. Like, they can just go get traps by themselves. They have Scatter Shot. I think it's a little bit worse than BM because you don't have the stun, right? You don't have the stun to set it up. Out of all the Hunter specs, Marks has the worst CC, right? I would put their CC at like a 3. Their utility CC and setup potential, like they bring a Mortal Strike, like maybe even a 2.5. Like a 3? 2.5, 3? Okay, we can put 3. We'll put it at 3. Their defense, they have really good kite ability. Like I'd say, you know, they can kite quite well. When I feel like a good hunter, man, they are so hard to take down. Depending on what, I guess depending. Like, I've never ever killed, Jellybeans can't die. They have the knockback, which is good. They have AoE root, they have trap, they have scatter, they have slow trap. I would say their defense is like a 3. I think that's fair. Their defense, once again, just like the other hunter specs. So here, you know, okay, so I think just like BM Hunter against like a caster, the fact that they can feign off dots, or like even against the feral, they like feign death is crazy. It has to be better than a 3, like a 3.5. All right, and how well do you work with others? I think they actually work well with lots of classes, right? Like I feel like a Marks Hunter could work with like a Destro Warlock, it could work with a Shadow Priest, it could work with a Frost Mage, it could work with any of the melee. I would say like a 4. I think they work. I think they have a kit and like a damage profile that works well with many classes. I feel like I want to put them at A. Yeah, I'm gonna put them at A. So Marks Hunter is looking like it's an A. That's kind of bold. You think so? You think A is bold? Maybe I'm being a bit too generous with the A's. I might have to move BM Hunter down as well. Ellie's B. I think it's good. Wait, so you guys think in solo shuffle that a BM Hunter will be more effective than a Marks Hunter? Is that what you guys are telling me? Yeah, I guess there's sustain. Sustain is really strong. Yeah, I can agree with that. As a BM Hunter, wait, let me give you my justification. So as a BM Hunter, you have more consistent damage, and your ability to solo CC is higher. So I think it's better. So I'll put it in A. I think that's totally fair. All right, now we get to pirates. Pirates. Now, to be fair, I haven't fought against any pirates. I played like 100 solo shuffles. I haven't fought one Outlaw Rogue. So I don't have much experience with Outlaw Rogues in 9.2. But based off my experience in 2s and 3s on the live servers, Outlaw Rogues are extremely good in 2s. So Outlaw Rogues, this is how I see Outlaw Rogues. Their burst is like a 2. Outlaw Rogues probably have the worst burst in the entire game, but their overall DPS is actually quite good. Unfortunately, I think the one thing that holds them back is this. Burst matters a lot right now. I would say their defense is like a 4.5. Their utility and CC and setup potential is also very high. How well do you work with others? I feel like it's good too. I think the one thing that holds them back is their burst. Have you seen Venthyr Outlaw? Their burst is pretty nuts. So why aren't Outlaws good? If you guys are trying to tell me that Outlaw Rogues have crazy burst, I know for a fact they have good sustain. They have great CC utility. They have great defense. Why are they bad? Their burst is not as high as a sub rogue. But maybe it's not a 2, but... So you guys are telling me the reason you don't see any Outlaw Rogues is because you could just play Assassination or Subtlety instead. So you guys, what are you guys telling me right now? Are we saying, I think for solo shuffle, honestly, I would put them at a B. I think they're a solid B. I think rogues in general, I think like the amount of CC they have, you know, just being able to sap, blind sap, kidney, like, I think they're really good. I think B is a fine pick for Outlaw. Honestly, Outlaw is a really solid spec. Okay, let's go next to Windwalker. Okay, so the next one we're doing is Windwalker. I played a lot of Windwalker, so I have a lot of it. I have a lot of experience on Windwalker. Overall DPS of a Windwalker is probably like a 1. Burst, I'd say probably like a 1.5. Defense, maybe like a 1. Utility and CC. I'm just fucking around. Okay, so DPS, Windwalker Monk's actually got some really nice changes in with their tier set. So their tier set is quite strong. I think a lot of Windwalker Monks are gonna end up playing around Fist of Fury a lot more. Fist of Fury hits hard. The set bonus gives you 40% more damage on it. So I think your overall DPS is actually quite considerable now. I would say it's a 3.5 because still, without cooldowns, Windwalker Monks aren't doing that much damage, to be honest. Like their overall DPS, I'd say is a 3.5, but maybe it's a 4. Let's put it at a 4. I think it's good. Wizwind's Treasure. You get some fatty Rising Sun kicks. Your Burst, probably a 4. Maybe a 4.5. I don't want to put it at a perfect 5 because I feel like your images just get screwed by everything in the game. Like, oh look, it's a monk. He used Storm, Earth, and Fire. Let's Nova it. Let's DB it. Let's Fear it. Let's blah, blah, blah. Utility, CC, and setup potential. I actually think monks are cool, man. You have Tiger's Lust. You have good utility. You have your Paralyze. You have Tiger's Lust. You have Leg Sweep. I think their stun is probably the worst of any melee in the game. I think Windwalker Monks have the worst stuns of any melee in the game. Ring of Peace is really nice. I'd say like a 3.5, maybe 4. AoE stun is the worst. It was on a 1 minute cooldown. That's the problem with it. Paralyze is nice. Yeah, I think you have some defense on a monk. So monks actually have really good defensive cooldowns. You have really high mobility. I think, so let me say something. So I think in solo shuffle, this is how I feel. I think in solo shuffle, Windwalker Monk stocks go way up. And the reason for that is I feel like Windwalker Monks, they can die right now. But I think a lot of that comes down to like people like setting up on them, doing like really, really good setup. So when it's like a solo queue and people aren't as coordinated, I feel like it allows monks to like kite and get away and rotate through their defensive cooldowns a little bit better. So like on the live realms, on like ladder, I'd say their defense is like maybe like a 2.5/3, but I would actually be comfortable saying it's like a 3.5, especially with how fast Fist of Fury rotates back up. Do you think this is crazy? That's another thing too. In 9.2, our health goes way up, and I think overall damage goes down a little bit. So I think monks aren't feeling as scared in between the goes. And how well you work with others, I think they work great with others, to be honest with you. Like Windwalker Monk, I would say a 4. They work well with others. Do we think monks are S tier? I think A. Wow, I'm really feeling you know what's nice? I feel like a lot of you guys are on the same page as me with this. Like we're on the same page. We're on the same page with this. This is a pretty good list so far. I feel like it's fairly accurate. All right, now Ret Paladin. Oh, Ret Paladins. How do we do Ret Paladin? So overall DPS for Ret Paladin, probably like a 3.5. Burst is a 5, I'd say. utility, CC, and setup potential. So Ret Paladins offer a lot. They bring in their freedom, they bring in Blessing of Sank, they bring in Blessing of Protection, they bring in Blessing of Sacrifice, the Hand of Sacrifice, whatever you want to call it. They have Bob, Freedom, Sank, Sack. They have really good off heals. They have Hammer of Justice, which is dispellable. Keep that in mind. Off heals, 3.5. Okay, let's say 4 for their overall. I don't want to. I think that's fine. I'd say their CC setup potential is a 4. Yeah. They do so much damage. Yeah. Defense for a Retribution Paladin, I think is really solid too, right? Having Bop, having Eye for an Eye, having, like, they have a lot. I think their defense is good. Shield of Vengeance. And how well do you work with others? They work pretty well. They're not the best. I think a lot of the time, like, Rets, they work really well with another class that has Mortal Strike. Like, they kind of need Mortal Strike. They work really well with a Warrior. Yeah, maybe that's a fair point. Their defense is more like a 3. They have very long defensive cooldowns. I think that's a really fair point. Like, their cooldowns do have a really long CD. They're a hybrid. Yeah, they fall over after bubble. I don't think they work very well with others. I'm going to be honest. I think they're like a 2 with others. Maybe it's like a 2.5. Cooldown length isn't really an issue in solo shuffle. It can be. It can be. Like, I'll give you for instance. So the game accelerates so fast, right? Like, if you're forced to use your defensive cooldowns at 2 minutes and then dampening is at 60% at minute 4, like, nothing's rotated back up. So it gets, unlike Monk, you know, like Karma rotates back up. I think I'm very comfortable giving Ret A. I do not feel comfortable giving Ret S or B. So it's going on the A. There's a few really good specs left. Really good specs left. There's Shadow Priest. Now, we had some people in my stream talking about Shadow Priest not being good. Someone was in my stream earlier. He was saying, you're not going to see a single person play Shadow Priest outside of the people in AWC that are forced to. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Shadow Priests are crazy. Just put them in S, no thinking. Are they S, though? I think so. So I think their utility, CC, and setup potential is actually a 5. I personally think they probably have the... Overall, when you consider their toolkit, with Psychic Horror... Like, you have Psychic Horror... You have Silence, you have Fear, you have Mass Dispel. What else do you have? You have Life Swap, if you end up using that. You have Mind Control. You have Psy-Fiend. They have every DR. Like, I think the CC is really, really good. The only thing they don't have is, like, a Spam Bull CC. They kind of do with Mind Control, but we'll see. So, Burst... I don't know how to, like, rank. I don't know how to rank their damage. Like a 4/4. What do you guys think? Like, they're not like, they don't burst like a Fire Mage, but they do burst. I think a 4/4. Like, their overall damage isn't the highest and their burst isn't the highest, but it's really good. Their defense, short cooldown on Dispersion, short cooldown on Fade. I think defense is like a 4. Probably. Their biggest downside is they can't kite very well, right? Like, they don't have a lot of mobility. I definitely don't want to say a 5 because they definitely lack mobility. I think the strength of the Shadow Priest is you have, you know, obviously you have Life Swap, you have Mass Dispel, which is good, like emergency buttons. But yeah, Disperse and Fade have such low cooldowns, so they rotate back up really, really quick. And then how well you work with others. I feel like aside from Warrior, Shadow Priest probably works well with every spec, and like it literally works with everything. I would put it 5. I feel like a 5 for how well you work with others is justified. I personally feel like Shadow Priest is probably one of the most versatile classes in the entire game. All right, so I think that leaves it at S tier. I think they're the highest A, but not S. I kind of feel like they're S tier. I feel like... So you have to remember, like, when I think about solo shuffle, on a Shadow Priest, like a good Shadow Priest, like Wiz K or any good Shadow Priest, you know, like they have so much instant CC to close out the game. Like, you have really, really good burst moments. You have really good defensive tools to stay alive. And then when you want to try to win the game, like, that's what they excel at. Like, oh, they can disarm one person, they can fear, they can silence, they have Psy-Fiend if they get left alone. And then through some of their defensive tools like Life Swap and Mass Dispel, I feel like they can keep the game going if they're good. I say S tier. I think they're S tier. Next one we have is Subtlety Rogue. Subtlety Rogue, huh? So, Subtlety Rogues, before I even rank them, I feel like Subtlety Rogues are crazy. Like, when I think of like a good Subtlety Rogue, they're so... It's weird though, because like, I don't know, man. Subtlety Rogue is so good. They have crazy CC. I'd say their utility... I think their utility CC and setup potential is a 5. No doubt about it in my mind. There's a zero doubt in my mind. Their burst, also a 5. Overall DPS is like a 2. Overall DPS is like a 2. Burst 5. Utility CC 5. Defense. I don't want to be unfair to rogues. I don't think their defense is the best. Like, their defense and like a well-coordinated RMP is strong. They can be hard to kill. But in a game like this where it's like kind of extended, I feel like their defense is not the best. Like a 3. It's not bad, but it's not the best. And how well do you work with others? You'd say a 3 for overall? Really? You think it's better? If sub isn't a 1 in consistent damage, then what is? Well, I feel like sub's overall DPS is actually really high. Like, sub rogues don't do low DPS now because Shadow Dance is just always up. Yeah, they burst so often. Yeah, exactly. And how well do they work with others? I feel like they don't. How well do they work with others? I feel like that's where they're going to score low. Like a 3? 2.5? They're very setup based, right? Like, they're super setup based. So here's the thing about sub, okay? Like, when you look at these numbers, it might not seem like they're going to be that great for solo shuffle, but I actually don't know about that. I feel like when you think about the things that are going to be super impactful, I feel like your burst and your CC and utility is really important. Like, you have a really good rogue who's always like off stunning the healer and like maybe sapping out of kidneys and getting blind saps and oh look, somebody trinketed, I'm gonna smoke bomb them or like shadowy duel them, you know? I just feel like the fact that sub rogues can literally 100-0 people in shadowy duel, you just automatically win the game if that happens, right? I can't in good conscience put them under A because there's a part of me that wants to put them S, but I feel like I can't. But like, I feel like the ability to create win conditions, Subtlety Rogue has the highest. Like, you just have so... I don't know if I want to put S though. Do I want to put S? The really good ones are S. Yeah, if you're like an insane... For solo shuffle, it's not S. I would say... Yeah, if someone trinkets, they win. You know what I mean? I think it's S. I feel like that if you're the best rogue in the whole, like if you're like you know, if you're like a Waz or something like that, I feel like is Subtlety Rogue is an S tier. But I feel like if you're not, I think it's gonna be harder to find those situations for like you know, a mid-range rogue, like a mid-range sub rogue. You know what I mean? Like, if you're the best rogue in the game, you're S tier. But if you're not, sub rogue is like A, I would say. How do you feel about that? That's why I don't want to put them at S, because I feel like when we think about sub rogues, we think about like these crazy players. I'd say A. Yeah. I'd say A. You know what I mean? If you're like one of those like top 5 sub rogues, you're S. Like, you're going to be able to have a tremendous impact on the game, but if you're not, it's going to be a little harder to pull that off. So that's why I'm going to put them at A. Now, next we have Survival. Survival. Hunter. I think Survival's great, man. I think Survival is great. Overall DPS of a Survival, 4. Burst. What about overall 5? Like a 4.5 in their burst? How high is Survival Hunter burst? It's not that high, is it? It's like a 3.5. 3.5 for burst. Overall 5, 3.5 for burst. I feel confident with that. They have really good sustain. Like, survival hunters do a lot of damage, man. Really good consistent damage. Utility. Now, I personally think survival hunters probably have the best utility CC and setup potential and defense of all the specs. Do we think that's fair? Is that a fair assessment? I think it's the best hunter spec, personally. Like, in a solo shuffle environment, I feel like their defense is incredibly high, too. I think in terms of their defense, their utility, their consistent damage, they're really good. How well do they work with others? I think they work great with others. Like a 4. They're definitely A. So survival hunters, I think, are going to be really, really solid. I would actually put them above BM hunters, in all honesty. I think they come above. I can kind of like, yeah, I think sub is probably up there. Yeah, I would put them above BM hunters. Yeah, I would not put them at, I don't think I'm going to put it. I don't think I'm going to put them at S tier. I think they're like A+. You think survival hunters are really S tier, huh? I think they're extremely good. Yeah, we'll put them up here. They're A tier. They're really, really, really good. I think they're better than a Shadow Priest. I'm not sure if I agree with that. I think a Shadow Priest probably works better with more classes than survival, but they're very good. Now, Unholy Death Knight. Unholy Death Knight's like this wild card, right? Like, ooh, where does it go? Where does it go? Where does it go? Unholy Death Knight. Unholy Death Knights have gotten a lot of buffs. Now, to be completely fair, I've only played against a couple in solo shuffle, and when I did play against them, they seemed crazy good. They seemed incredibly strong. Their defense against melee, probably low, like a 2.5. Defense against casters is definitely like a 6. I know you can't, we haven't put anything at a 6, but I feel it's up there. It's like defense is, it's another one of those things where Unholy Death Knights, their defense against caster is legitimately overpowered, in my opinion, but their defense against melee is not great. Overall damage of an Unholy Death Knight, it's going to be high, right? Like a 4.5. Their burst is crazy too with their cooldowns. Like another 4.5. 5 overall? You think so? I think they're good, man. This is one I'm not. Their overall's not that high. Okay, I'll put it at 4.5. It's definitely high. Like, we're not talking about 9.15, guys. We're not talking about live. We're talking about next patch in 9.2. Death Knight's got a lot of buffs. They got a lot of buffs. I think Unholy is going to be really, really good. Their utility, CC, and setup potential. They have Chains of Ice. They got stuns. They got grips. They got grippy hands. Maybe like a 4. How well do they work with others? So there's something weird about Unholy Death Knights where I feel like they don't work well with they don't work well with setup classes. They don't work well with setup classes at all. Like, as a mage, I hate playing with an Unholy Death Knight. Maybe as like a Frost Mage, I'll like it. Maybe as like a Frost Mage, I'll like it. Just because I attack, that's all I do. But like, I feel like they just break everything. It's like, I don't think they work great with hunters. Maybe a BM hunter, but no. I don't think they work great with hunters. I don't think they work great with rogues. Maybe they'll be okay with rogues, but not great. I don't think they work well with mages. So like maybe like a 3 on how, like 2.5. So like, okay, so someone says it didn't work with any casters. I feel like that's not true. I feel like they would be okay with like a Moonkin, an Ellie Shaman, and a Shadow Priest. I think we're gonna go with a. I'm not entirely sure. Like, I'm not convinced that Unholy is better than Frost. What do you guys think about that? I'm not convinced that Unholy is better than Frost. I think Unholy is really good, but is it better than Frost Death Knight right now? I'm not sure about that. Like, Unholy Death Knight's ability to solo win a game, how high is it? They don't have that same, like, they have good setup, but they don't have that same, like, CC to just, like, directly win a game, you know? All right, so these are the DPS. This is what we have. This is what we have about the DPS right now. I have for S tier, Arms Warrior, Feral Druid, Fire Mage, Havoc Demon Hunter, and Shadow Priest. For A tier, we have Survival Hunter, Subtlety Rogue, Assassination Boomkin Ellie, Windwalker Ret, and BM Hunter. For B tier, we have Demo Warlock, Destro Warlock. Demo Warlock could be A. So contingency, like, Demo Warlock is the highest B or it's A too. Like, it's really good. So Demo, Destro, Marks, Unholy Death Knight, Frost Death Knight, and Pirate is B. Pirate could be lower at C maybe. I think it's going to be good though. I think Rogue's kit is just good. Affliction, C, Enhanced C, Frost Mage C, Fury C, and Arcane Mage D. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Is there anything you disagree with? Swap Sub and Demon Hunter and Demo and with Asa. Warrior A. Warrior is not A, man. Are you crazy? Rank them in order. This is good. I like the debate that we're having here. Yeah, and for all my my friends on YouTube, let me know if you guys disagree with anything I'm saying here. Demo Warlock could be A. I do think that Demo Warlock could be A. There's a part of me that wants to put it to A. I'm going to put it to A. I'm just going to do it. I think Marks is... The reason I have Marks at B... So B is not bad. Like a B is still 80%. Like 80% is a good mark. You're proud of an 80%. Like you bring, like I said, man, you bring home a test that's like 80, 89. Technically 89% out of 100 is a B. Are you sure about Shadow Priest S? Yes. Yeah. You know. Okay, so there's too many A's. Push the survival up to S. That's too many S's, man. Survival could be S. I'm very... I think where I am... Yeah, okay, so you know what? I'm going to put Arcane to S tier. I agree with that, Kappa. Arcane is the worst DPS spec in the game. I'm confident in saying that. All right, now healers. Here's the hard part. Here's the hard part, and this could be controversial. I'm not exactly sure. We're going to leave it at this. This is my own personal opinion. You guys can disagree with me. It's not going to be perfect, but this is how I feel. Okay, so here we go. Starting with the healers. I thought about this a lot. I went for a really long walk today, and I thought about healers a lot. Okay? So we're going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to delete their... I guess I shouldn't delete DPS. I'll leave their HPS and DPS. How about overall DPS? And then I'm going to add something. Overall DPS. We're actually going to make these separate. Overall DPS and overall HPS. So overall DPS, overall HPS. We're going to actually put them... We're going to put them separate because I think it's important to do that. So like a Mistweaver Monk, for example, I feel like their overall HPS is like a 5. Like that's what... Let's do Mistweaver Monk first. So Mistweaver Monk's burst is complete. It's a 1. Like overall damage for a Mistweaver Monk is completely terrible. It's their biggest weakness by far. They do no damage. Like they literally do no damage at all. They do nothing. They don't... Like their offensive... like I guess they add Mystic Touch. So if you're like cleaving, you can put up a debuff so your other melee do damage. But still, I can't in good conscience put it like a 1. It's bad. But their HPS is good. So they do no damage, but their HPS is really good. And their utility, their CC, and their setup potential is actually quite high, I would say. So Mistweaver Monk can find these opportunities to move in. They can paralyze the healer. They can leg sweep the healer. Hell, they can even drop a Song of Chi-Ji on the healer and sleep them. So I feel like their setup is kind of high. The thing that really holds them back is the fact that they don't do any damage. Like, I would say 4. Their defense is good as well. Like, I think Revival, Life Cocoon, being able to pour in stuns, maybe a 3. 3.5 for defense. I think the fact that they can port in stuns is really good. Another thing I want you guys to keep in mind, and I've said this a few times tonight, I think when you get into a situation where teams are less coordinated, certain classes, like Mistweaver Monks, their stonks go up a bit, you know? Like their ability to kite and get away, and the way their cooldowns rotate back up quite quickly, I think unless you kind of like all in a monk at a good time, they're going to live. So I would say it's good. How well do you work with others? I think they work with caster cleaves. I think they work with melee cleaves. I'd say pretty high. They get 3.5. They have low damage, maybe like a 3. So I think the biggest weakness of the Mistweaver Monk, is the fact that it's going to be really difficult for them to like assist in a kill because their damage is so low. They can keep their team alive a long time, and they do have some instant CC. Like a good monk it's gonna be nice to play with one. Problem I think I see for them is as dampening goes up, it becomes really difficult to catch up, and they're gonna have to open their tree a lot more. They have really good mana regen too. Overall HPS slash, I'm gonna put mana. Overall HPS and mana. Maybe that doesn't, it's not good, but I'm gonna put that together. So I would say Mistweaver is B. I think it's a B. I actually, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think there's any healers right now that are C or D. I actually don't know if there's any D healers. I think all the healers, spoiler alert, are pretty good. Some better than others though. So let's talk about some of the ones that are better than others. So let's talk about Resto Druids. Overall HPS and mana, 5. DPS, I guess they don't do really great DPS. They don't have great burst, probably. Utility CC and setup potential, 5, 10. Their defense, 10. How well you work with others, 5. I'm not gonna put burst for this. We're gonna take that away. I feel like it's skewing the numbers. They're S tier. If there's any healer that's S tier, it's Resto Druids, and there's another one too that I think is S tier. Resto Druid is for sure S tier. If Resto Druids are not S tier, then nothing's S tier. Resto Druids are insanely good. This is actually the only time for HPS and mana I'm gonna put a 6. I know it's off the charts. Like, here's the charts, and this is Resto Druid's healing. It's off the charts, okay? Next up, we have Holy Priest. So Holy Priest, DPS, I'd say is really high. For the healers, they probably have like some of the highest DPS. You have to, this is in comparison to other healers. They probably have the, Disc is higher. So overall DPS for Holy Priest is like a 4. Overall HPS and their mana efficiency, I'd say is pretty good. Like maybe a 4, it's not Druid. Utility CC and setup potential, 5, I would say. Being able to stun fear and mind games. A lot of the Holy Priests are going to be playing mind games. I think is a really, really good way to contribute to a kill. Their defense, defense is not that. It's not Druid level. They have like a 3.5 defense, and I think overall Holy Priests do work really well with others. Like Holy Priest can play jungle, Holy Priest can play RMP, Holy Priest can play caster cleaves, Holy Priest can play cleaves. Like Holy Priests are really good. Holy Priests are also S tier. Below Druid, but S tier. I think Holy Priests are incredibly well-rounded. I think they're really, really good. In solo shuffle, especially mind games. Now, we'll talk about Disc. So Disc overall DPS is probably higher than Holy, we could say, right? Their overall HPS and mana, depending on their covenant. So that's a problem. It depends on their covenant, but I'd say like it's less than Holy. Is it less than Holy? This is where I need you guys. Is Discipline Priest HPS and mana worse than Holy? Yes, worse. Okay, it's worse. Utility and CC and setup potential is worse than Holy as well because you don't have a stun. It's worse by a lot, I would say. Not having a stun is crazy. It's like, it's the difference. So Holy Priest for Discipline Priest is the difference between Frost Mage and Fire Mage. So if you're a Fire Mage, you Dragon's Breath Sheep, and there's nothing they can do about it. If you're a Holy Priest, you can stun fear, and there's nothing they can do about it. So I'd say 2.5. Like Holy Priest can flex between incap, fear, or stun depending on what solo Q they get. They seem great. Disc can't. Yeah, I agree. Defense for Holy Priest. I think Holy Priests have good defense. I think Rapture. I would actually say their defense is better than Holy. So I think where Disc, it works pretty well with others too. So I think Disc has better defensive cooldowns and more overall damage, but maybe not as much burst. So maybe the damage doesn't matter as much. Your overall HPS and mana is lower and your CC is lower. So that's why I think Holy Priest is a lot better, because you just can get CC and you have a really high burst. So I would say Disc is B tier. I don't think Disc is better than Mistweaver. I think Disc could actually be C tier. I don't know. How do you feel about that? I actually think if I was going to put anything C tier, it's Disc. So Disc is either B or C. I'll put it at B. But in solo shuffle, I think Disc could actually be a C. But it does have good defensive, so we'll put it at B. Okay? We'll put it at B. Next up, we have Holy Paladin. Now, Holy Paladin, overall damage, really high. So Necrolord, I think it's Necrolord Holy Paladin. Very high DPS. I'd say HPS and mana, I'd stick it with... Holy Paladins are really interesting because they have such strong defensive cooldowns, and they do have really good healing, but their mana is bad. So, like, their mana is terrible. But they do have good healing. Utility, CC, and setup potential is extremely high. I think, like, you see... I mean, you guys have seen it. Like, these Holy Paladins that charge in with Hodge and Blinding Light. And mana is better for... Yeah, but I'd still put them at, like, a 3. Their utility is a 4. And their defense is also... Maybe a 5. Defense of 4. They're so good, man. Sack is so good. Bop is so good. Freedom's so good. You have 2 outs with Bubble and Trinket. We'll put it at 4. And how well do you work with others? I think Paladins work pretty well with others also. I think they're well-rounded. I would put Paladins at A tier. I think in solo shuffle, maybe freaking Mistweaver's A tier too. They don't have damage though. That's at A tier. Paladins, I think, they're good, man. Resto Shaman is S tier. I don't think Resto Shaman is S tier. But let's go through the numbers, and I'll give you my thought process. All right, so here we go. We got Resto Shaman. Resto Shaman, overall DPS is very high. Like I'd say it's a 4.5. I'd say it's like 4.5 probably. Yeah, so I'd say it's like a 4.5. Overall HPS and mana. Shamans have really powerful cooldowns, but their overall HPS isn't the best. They do have good mana though, so... I feel like they have pretty good healing. They have really good healing cooldowns. So I'll put their defense high because I feel like their defense is high. They have like a good defense. Their Earthen Wall is pretty strong. Spearlink Totem is pretty strong. Their big weakness though, a big weakness I will admit, is their cooldowns are long. So that's got to count for something. Put the defense a little lower. Their utility, CC, and setup potential though, extremely high. I think. Like they bring a lot of utility with Grounding Totem, with Wind Shear, with Purge. A lot of them will be playing Rock Elemental, which is a really, really powerful all-in. And I think a lot of Shaman are actually going to play like Offensive Covenants too. Their healing is even lower than I thought. Like their healing is good, defense is good, but I think they have really, really high here. How well do they work with others? I mean, Shaman, they're not the best in Caster Cleaves right now, and some Caster Cleaves are actually pretty good, like Boomkin Shadow Priest works well. Boomkin Shadow Priest. I think they're probably still going to be worse than Druids in like all of those comps. Overall DPS maybe a 5 with Vesper. Yeah, it could be really high. So I'd put them at like A tier. H Paladin is A, but Disc is B. I think so, yeah. Some people say they disagree about the Disc thing. You guys really think Disc is A? I'm not sure. I think so. I think Holy Paladins are really strong. I think Shamans are pretty strong too. I would swap Holy Paladin and Disc. I think Paladins are way better than you're giving them credit. Like a good Paladin is going to be able to assist in kills a lot. A good Paladin is like Mistweaver, where at the right moment they push in, they get instant CC. Except unlike a Mistweaver, they actually burst as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to conclude my official tier list. So this tier list is for 9.2 solo shuffle viability. This is what we got. Okay? This is what we got. I don't know how long. This is going to be if you guys are on YouTube and you're still watching all this, I love you. Great job. But yeah, this is going to be a long one for sure. Let me know if you guys disagree with me. I'm always down for the discussions, and like I said, I haven't played... I will say this, I've probably played more solo shuffle than anybody, but I still haven't played against all of these specs, and I haven't played against the best players playing these specs as well. But this is my gut instinct. This is my gut instinct.